Welcome back, and it's been a while since the last time we played some boats on the channel, and Wargaming seemed to agree as well, and they decided to sponsor today's video. So thank you very much for that. And of course, me being sponsored also means that you are eligible to get some free stuff as well. But before we get into that, let me quickly introduce you into the game if you aren't familiar with it. World of Warships is a game about, well, you guessed it, warships. And you basically just hurl shells the size of bombs at people in an attempt to turn them into spare parts. Now, this is all fine and dandy, but ship games have an issue overall. They are very slow and methodical because, well, these ships are the size of the moon and they don't handle very fast. The turret rotations are slow, the ranges are long, the reloads are slow, and all in all, basically everything you do is in slow motion. And this makes it very hard to make a playable game. Now, of course, Wargaming here went with a little bit more of the arcade route, so it's actually possible to play something like a cruiser in a game like this. There is spotting, and if you aren't spotted, you simply go invisible, so sneaking up on people is actually valid. This is not like real life where you are able to sit in a corner of the map for 2 hours straight in an attempt to wait and ambush someone. The point system actually promotes proactive gameplay. Sitting in the back of the map on the A1 line is not gonna win you many games. You want to be in the thick of it, of course it depends on your class. Right now we are playing a massive battleship. The concealment is pretty bad, so we are gonna be spotted from very far away. We are massive, we are easy to hit. Now this is more on the lighter side of the battleships. Of course have massive ones like the Iowa, the Yamato, ships like that. Right now we are basically playing something in between a cruiser and a battleship. What's the name of those ships? Well, funnily enough, it's called a battle cruiser. And by playing it close enough to the cap so that we can actually help out our team. But we don't want to go too close because then we are gonna get our shit rocked by 20 torpedoes from that destroyer directly in front of us. Of course, this game is super dynamic and not really every game plays out the same way, so it's very hard to show you a complete picture of this game. So I have some more games for you today, but for the people that are already sold on this game, if you sign up today with the code BRAVO, you will get a few goodies. Now you get 7 days of premium, 1.5 million credits, 500 doubloons, which is the premium currency, and then after 10 battles you will also receive a free ship. Now you can choose between a plethora of them. We have the USS Phoenix, the cruiser Kuma from the Japanese line, the French battleship Courbet, and then something I really don't want to pronounce, but it's the Italian battleship Dante Alighieri. And I'm not sure if I completely butchered that. If I did, I'm sorry, I will eat pasta this evening just to make it up to you. And no, I will not actually cut the spaghetti. And then lastly we also have the HMS Wakeful, which is actually pretty easy to pronounce because, well, English sounds like a normal language to me, believe it or not. If you haven't signed up for an account yet, if you use the code BRAVO, you will get everything I just mentioned and maybe a lot of fun along the way as well. Try it out, it's free, it's fun and pretty easy to pick up. Everything being so slow also makes it relatively easy to aim, and if you use certain sights on the cursor there, you can actually see the time to impact, which kind of just makes you able to count the seconds until the shells arrive. And if you know how fast something roughly is, well, you're gonna have a pretty easy time hitting people. Now there is some shell spread to this. You can tell that the shells don't just fly pinpoint across the map. This is of course for balance reasons. Some ships have insanely good accuracy and other ships have, well, insanely bad spread. Now there's also another thing called Sigma, funnily enough. And the better your Sigma is, the tighter the grouping is of the shell. So all of the shells might fly to a certain direction, but they are still going to be packed close together. Now if you have a very inaccurate gun with a very low Sigma, let me tell you, you are not going to hit anything. So most of the time low Sigma guns are only reserved for ships that actually have a pretty good accuracy. Ships like the Yamato come to mind, for example, where you are able to simply cross map people with shells the size of a house, which is pretty funny and which we will see in a minute here. 4 minutes of yapping, let's take a bit of a look at the actual gameplay here. Now we are playing a battle cruiser, so we want to play it somewhat safe because we don't have the brawling capability of something like a massive battleship, but we also are not as weak as the cruiser. And the cruisers, as you might know from my previous videos, are still my favorite class. Yes, I did start playing this game to get the massive guns. You know, when you think of battleships of World War II and a little bit later, you're probably gonna think about ships like the North Carolina, the Yamato, the Iowa, you know, the big massive ships with 2 to 4 turrets that are absolutely humongous, that are made to basically one-shot everything they hit. That's what you think of. But funnily enough, cruisers ended up fitting my playstyle a lot more. But I still like these bigger ships. but I am not good enough to make these massive ships work. Inputting my rudder to turn like 2 degrees and then dying 4 minutes later to it is something I can't really deal with. And I know I talk about this all the time in the other game that we play on the channel. Sometimes what kills you happens like 3 minutes in advance, and it's really no different here. But with this, once you messed up, it is actually over. So it's very important to play it methodical, to play it strategically. You cannot just hold W and zoom straight past the middle, because you are gonna die before you even reach the halfway point. Now if you are playing something like the Yamato, then you're probably gonna get away with it because you just have so much health and armor. But you're still not gonna live, and because you have such a low reload and your turrets take forever to turn around, if you are out of position, you are at least gonna lose half of your health, which is something that you want to avoid. So the way to avoid this is by keeping your distance, but not too much. As I said, sitting at the A1 line or the J10 line really isn't gonna help you out. And if you play on the weekends, sometimes you'll find your entire team looking for Narnia in the corners of the map, and this gives you a little bit of trouble. Would you win though? Nah, you'd lose. If your entire team is sitting in the corner of the map, the best thing you can do is try to convince them to come out of the corner of the map. But finding a teammate that will comply to this order is about as likely as them actually finding Narnia. Because let me tell you, the people that do this often just don't play the game a lot. They try to keep the distance and they kind of go overboard with their tactic. And it just doesn't work. You need to stay with your team, but if you don't attack the objectives with your team, you're still going to lose. And if you are just bunched up with 7 to 8 to 10 people in the corner of the map, you are probably going to survive, and everyone that comes near that blob is instantly going to die. But if you can't attack the objectives in the middle of the map, what ends up happening is the timer is just going to keep on ticking, they will have more flags captured, and you will lose the game in the long run. So instead of looking for Narnia, advise you to look for some objectives and maybe actually turn the tide in your favor. But what are we doing in the meantime with our Illinois in the background? Well, as I said the entire time, you want to keep your distance, you want to stay near the middle of the map, but again, you don't want to just bum rush straight in. I can sit about 2 grid squares further up, but then I'm just going to be pincered in, I'm going to be shot from every direction, I will be permanently spotted. And once I arrive at the grid square, if I don't die before I even make it, I'm gonna give myself about 30 to 60 seconds before the game is completely over. Instead, I hang back a little bit, I use the terrain to my advantage, and you need to keep track of your minimap. Once you get more experience, you really start to learn the ships and you know the more intricate details of their spotting range and such. But for starters, it's good to just distinguish between destroyers, cruisers and battleships. And then you can kind of guess where these people might be. Now, when they go unspotted, they go like a little bit transparent on the minimap, but you know that their last spotted position is roughly around that position. And as I said, it takes quite a while to reposition. So if someone is unspotted over there and it hasn't been like 5 minutes, it's very likely that he's still in the vicinity. And if it's a destroyer, they can sneak up on you, they can get very close until you detect them. And there is a detection range on the minimap as well. It's that dotted line, and you can see that whenever I fire or whenever I haven't fired in a while, it shrinks and increases. If you are active, if you are on fire or you are shooting your guns, your detection range will go up tremendously. You can tell that it's essentially the same range as the range of my guns. And this essentially means that I'm able to be spotted all the way across the map if people have line of sight. And of course, if you do get spotted and you are in cover, even though they do see you, they are not able to shoot you from every direction. Now in this case, I'm about to collect about 12 torpedoes in the span of 2 seconds, and I went from full health to just over half. Yes, that shit hurts. Luckily, they are plane torpedoes, which are not nearly as strong as destroyer torpedoes. If the carrier plays it right, he can keep you permanently spotted, and if he drops his torpedo right, they're very hard to dodge in a ship like this. Now, I just used my repair ability to stop the flooding, because flooding does an absolute metric load of damage. Torpedoes coming in from the front from a submarine, try to dodge them, just don't have enough ability here. I'm too slow, I don't have the maneuverability, and I'm essentially energy trapped by the enemy planes. I'm completely side on, he drops another batch of torpedoes, and I just used my repair ability. It just went off cooldown, trying to speed up to dodge as many as possible. Unfortunately, in the end, I only managed to dodge 2. And now with my killed steering, I'm just gonna continue turning to the position my rudder was locked into. And I'm gonna end up basically giving myself full broadside to the enemy battleship, while also taking a lot of damage as well. Now you can see that the border of the flooding and the steering is slowly decreasing, and once that is completely empty it will repair on its own. But at this point I am done. I'm stuck there and I'm just gonna get peppered to death. So let's take a look at the Des Moines. The Des Moines is of course a lot more of a reactive ship, faster movement, smaller, easier to use guns, much higher rate of fire. And overall, this is one of those ships that, once I started falling in love with cruisers, is the ship that I really wanted to get. The American cruisers have very strong AP. They also have pretty good HE. However, they don't have a lot of armor. And the gun velocity is pretty low. So trying to hit a destroyer that's actually paying attention is quite hard. But when you do hit them, as you can tell right here, you just absolutely melt them. Now I'm kind of sliding out of position right here, so I'm trying to back up, but there they are, more torpedoes. And because I didn't react in time, because I didn't predict my slip from the ship coming out of cover, I put myself in a super bad position, and this is the way the game started. Now with the previous game I kept my distance appropriately, I used my cover appropriately, and I basically got to about 100k damage before I even managed to take any damage at all. Now we are out of position, we are spotted. Luckily the Death Destroyer popped the smoke screen, and now that battleship isn't able to see me because my detection range is a lot lower than something like an Alaska or an Illinois or just the bigger ships in general. So I'm now able to just kind of sit here and reposition myself. I need to get out of here before that smoke dissipates, because I am a massive sitting duck right now. And yes, I can fire at the battleship. I can probably punish him a little bit, but he's gonna punish me harder than the other way around. In the meantime, I'm trying to throw some depth charges on the submarine to just be annoying, because that doesn't get me spotted. That's a plane, that's not a ship, so I am just able to kind of back up a little bit. And then we kind of look at his turrets. Is he looking directly at us? I mean, yeah, but I can probably get some pot shots in, get a bit of free damage. He is about to fire back at us, but because we are going backwards and he needs to lead his shot. Guess what? Half the shells are gonna hit the mountain on the left, and the other shells are just falling a little bit short. Now that is slightly lucky, and he could have hit me in the nose right there. But the nose of this ship is essentially empty, and I'm not like straight on, so he can't citadel me straight to the bow. And now he's being peppered by multiple people. He took his lock off us, so I know that he's not looking at me with his guns. And because he's also forced to turn out for the torpedoes, he basically gives us a super fat broadside. And I'm now able to just switch to AP and absolutely rinse this guy. I mean, look at this kind of damage. If we get solid hits in, if we are like actually hitting the appropriate spots, we are doing massive damage. And AP damage is something that you can't heal as well as HE damage. So AP damage will always be better. But now we are getting shot from the left side again, and I'm again beached. While I'm trying to wiggle my ass out of this position, I can of course just continue firing on the grosse Kurfürst. Why? Because my guns move separately from my rudder and my throttle, so I can simply continue to hammer this guy, move a little bit forward to clear off the angle from the left hand side, make sure to not beach myself again, and we are basically in the clear now. Yes, we are in the open, but this guy has so many people to shoot at that he doesn't really know who to shoot at. Now I do want to be careful of his secondaries. He's being airdropped with parachute bombs, there are some torpedoes coming in. And this guy is essentially just an XP piñata at this point. We again switch on over to the depth charges. Drop some on the other side of the island over here. And hope that we manage to get a kill in. Submarines are pretty annoying to deal with as long as they don't like surface. And especially if they are on the other side of an island. But if you hit them directly with a depth charge, well, let me tell you, they are built to kill submarines, believe it or not, and they end up doing quite a bit of damage. So we sink the submarine on the other side of the island, and we just continue firing on the grosse Kurfürst, because that's, well, the only thing that's in range right now. And we do need to claw back a little bit. We are down on points, we are down on ships, and we are already half health, so I just want this guy out. We are just trying to keep setting him on fire. He's trying to kite away from us. I'm just gonna park myself behind the island again. And I'm just trying to set as many fires as possible. Now, if you are trying to set people on fire, it's important to not maintain hitting the same spot of their ship. If it's already on fire, you can't set it on fire again. He already used his damage control module. So I'm now just trying to set as many fires as possible so that we just end up killing him. Now he ends up just dying to the shells itself and not so much the fire damage. But he dies, and that's really all that is important. We try to get some side shots in on the Moskva over there, but he ends up eating shit to our own submarine, which is absolutely terrific, because now I'm able to actually turn around and focus our attention to only one side. That's why I was going for the Moskva. I don't want two people or multiple people on different sides. I'd rather just funnel them all into one position, so you can shoot at all of them and defend from all of them at the same time. Now there are of course exceptions. If you are in a position where you can defend against one with hard cover that can't shoot you anymore and then lock the other guy into a 1v1, that is completely valid. But if you have like 6 people on one side and 1 on the other, make sure to kill the one that's alone, and then you are able to put your undivided attention on the massive blob in front of you. And yes, I can use my repair right now, but as you can tell, the kind of grayed out bar on my health bar there isn't that big yet. So if I save my heal a little bit longer, if I take a little bit more HE damage for example, or minor AP damage, I'm able to heal a little bit more, so I end up getting more value out of my heal. I only have 2 left. I'm probably not going to get one shot, and if I am, well, yeah, that's just too bad, but I'd rather risk it for a little bit extra health, giving us a little bit more longevity. Now this Z-52 kind of comes out of position. He's trying to flee from the Shimikaze. He kind of just floats directly into our guns, but he gets slapped by the Shimikaze before we are able to do so. And now, I mean, we just get this absolutely free XP pinata in front of us. We are directly behind a mountain. There is nothing he can do about this, and I'm just gonna start hammering him with HE shells. He's very broadside, so I just want to switch on over to AP at this point, and then the cruiser comes in. And I'm thinking about going for the cruiser because he has some very free damage. However, the battleship kind of maintains that full broadside position. The cruiser is turning in, he's actually actively dodging my shells. So instead, I'm gonna switch back on over to the battleship. And instead of trying to set him on fire, because he already is, I'm just gonna leave that one fire on him, because very often one fire by battleships, you just kind of let it burn. You don't really mention it, you just kind of ignore it, and you just let it burn, because it doesn't do that much damage. Whereas if you set a second fire on them, very often they will instantly put it out, because 2 fires is simply not worth keeping on. It's going to cost you way too much health. Now the battleship is behind the massive island over there. We are still behind an island, and I do want to be careful of that cruiser. And yes, I know it's a Minotaur, but I'm trying to keep it a little bit more generic, so it's easier for you guys to understand, because the cruiser is actually very easily distinguishable by the little tag. So the 2 lines is a battleship, 1 line is cruiser, and then the destroyer is like a little arrow, and then the sub is like an arrow with the ass cut off from it. A little bit late, about 18 minutes into the video, but hey, I'm expecting you all to watch the entire thing if you clicked on it. And if you did manage to make it this far, the game must at least look somewhat interesting to you. So feel free to use my link down below. Use the code BRAVO to sign up, and you will get some free goodies to make the starting grind just that little bit easier. Now we are just kind of boxed in at this point. We have a battleship on the left, Minotaur, the cruiser on the front. We have another battleship on the right who is engaged with someone else. And I mean, I can wait here all day long, but that's not gonna win me the game. So I drop my radar here, and I'm gonna radar all the way around this island, and I'm trying to find the guy that's contesting the flag. If we capture this, we are essentially sure to win. And I'm just trying to make it so that I'm not boxed in anymore. We have the cruiser in front of us, the destroyer on the left, and then another battleship on the left as well as a cruiser behind cover. Now the cruiser behind cover is not gonna do anything in the short run, but he can poke out eventually, and I want to avoid that. And while the Minotaur is such a low health, I kind of just want to kill him first. So I now drop my sonar as well to see if there's any torpedoes coming in. I'm gonna drift slightly forward, and I'm gonna bait the Minotaur into poking out by shooting at the battleship. Now I'm constantly looking to see if he gets spotted. We get detected. I shoot at him once. I notice that the Minotaur gets spotted instantly. We trim our guns over, and the Minotaur is extremely squishy. He's on low health, and our AP does an absolutely tremendous amount of damage. Now once we get into this engagement, I did drop my heal to just make sure that I don't get absolutely slammed, and we back up. Try to get back into cover. The destroyer can't do much to us. The battleship can't do anything to us. We are now back in cover, and I'm just waiting for him to trim his gun somewhere else, because I want him to think that I'm not re-peeking. And as he's looking the other way, I'm gonna peek back out and start shooting him with HE again. Now the second I notice that he starts just absolutely hammering this turn. Well, the torpedo starts coming in. You can cue some Thomas the Train Engine. And this torpedo, I mean, it's just so slow that we ended up basically sailing right into it. Thank you all for watching, and you'll see me in the next one.